Yeah, we're live. What time is it? Did I miss it? Did I miss it? Oh, 7:08. So we're a little bit late. But here's the big thing. As you can see behind me, take a look. What does that look like? To me, it looks like a new project car. Right now, I'm finishing up. I just finished the editing on a full video on everything that happened on this car and what it has and what it doesn't have. But we're going to take a little bit of a sneak peek tonight for all my live people because, you know how we do it. I try to treat you guys a little bit better. You're here. You're ready. You're part of the team. Come on now. 1985 Dodge Omni GLH Turbo, plus it's got like a whole slew of mods, so we'll be able to go over all of that stuff tonight. The great thing is it is a 2.5, first of all. I also have a 2.2 because I got the 600 motor from the wrecking yard, the early 1984 version. This one, as you can see, and I'll take you over there with the camera, Shelby. Fancy, all kinds of fancy stuff. Better than a Lada. I think a Lada would be cool, especially if you did a swap on one. Rickman, Tennessee, what's up in the house? Yes, I'm very excited. I got to go pick this thing up. Yeah, Dave, I think it was yesterday, maybe. So that was awesome. It was great. The guy that sold it to me, he's actually the original owner of the car, and not only does he have this, but he's got a number of other very, very cool 2.2 project cars that are just awesome, like beyond belief. I'm very happy that I was able to get this one, and I told him that once I do everything that we're going to do with it, because he's the original owner, if he wants the car back at some point, that I would go ahead and sell him the car back, because I understand what being the original owner is. I have a 1988 5-liter Mustang LX, which I love, and probably the only people that I would want to have that would be some other family member. So I understand this. So maybe this is a temporary thing for me, but that's okay. I'm entrusted to this, and I'm going to do right by it. It's got lots and lots of cool stuff. I got a great deal on it, which is awesome. Thank you, John. But the great thing is that because it's a 2.5 and I already have a 2.2, I'm able to do like comparisons between the two, which are always really, really good. I mean, if you take a look at some of the videos I have up, obviously I've run 4.8s and 5.3s and 5.3s and 6.0s, but I can't remember, other than doing them as a back-to-back NA, I don't remember doing one specifically to find out, hey, look, if we had the same things on the 2.2 and the same things on the 2.5, for instance, what happens to the spool rate of the turbo? Obviously, if you're using a factory turbo and it spools it up immediately with a smaller motor, that's not really a big deal. The 2.5 is not really going to help you out. It's obviously going to make more torque. It's bigger. That's what they do. But where it really comes into play is when we have a bigger turbo. So if we were trying to spool a Super 60 or a GT 3076 or a GT 3582, something where you're really trying to make power, having a 2.5 instead of the 2.2. And yes, I know the 2.2 just revs for crazy. It's like the 2-liter versus the 2.4 and the Honda K-Series stuff. And I understand that, but having the bigger motor, and these are all low RPM motors anyway, and they're all like way underheaded because these heads, even imported for them, don't really flow enough to support really, really high like NA power levels. So what happens is that it takes just a ton of boost to make these things work. And so none of them rev really very high, even when you put cams in them and stuff. But the cool thing also is I was able to gather together a few different things. One being this. So we've got things like this. We've got the T2 intercooler. This one is actually from a Daytona. It's a little bit different, but running it on the engine dyno, that's not going to be a problem. So I'll be able to compare the T2 intercooler to having no intercooler and show you what this one does, and be able to compare this. This thing, you can't really see it. I'll take you over there with the camera. Has a giant front mount on it. So I've already got a big air-to-air front mount intercooler that we can run obviously on the dyno and in the car and stuff. And we can also run this on the dyno and in the car, on the chassis dyno, do some testing with it. And also an air-to-water intercooler. So we can compare all of that stuff, which will be really, really good. So we'll find out, hey, look, at 7 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever the number is, this one actually works fairly well, and it drops the temperature by this much. And here's what the recovery rate is and all that stuff. And maybe a lot of guys out there already know this, but this is going to be very, very cool. So this one's been obviously well taken care of. He had it wrapped up, which is awesome. Good job, John. This one, even though it looks like and the other cool thing about this, the 2.5 is a T2. So it has the T2 intake manifold. It has the 2-piece manifold, which the owner of the car also allowed me to borrow a 1-piece intake manifold, which I have around here somewhere. Oh, I'll grab it. It's right back here. We've got the 1-piece. So here we go. We've got, this is the 1-piece intake manifold, very similar looking to that one. It's got the elbow, got the throttle body and stuff. This is a 1-piece. It looks like it has maybe slightly shorter runners, but it'll be interesting. Guys really want to know in a comparison between the 1-piece and the 2-piece to see which one's better. I also, obviously, on that 84 600 motor, the 2.2, I also have the log manifold, the first one that they put on all those cars. So we'll be able to compare those back to back on the dyno and at the same boost level, same air fuel, same timing, all of that stuff, and show what each one of them does, so we can give guys an idea on, hey, look, here's what it does, without having to worry about was the car that you were trying to test it in. Because what happens is when guys try to do back-to-back tests, they don't always do that. Oh, I upgraded to the T2 stuff. And when I put that intake manifold on, obviously we also put the intercooler on. So when I did the upgrade, I did the whole upgrade. Or when I did that, I also changed the turbo, or I changed the boost, or I put a different ECU in, maybe put a Motorsports or the Mopar one. And so there were more changes than just one thing. This way we'll be able to run all those manifolds. And the nice thing about it, unlike being in the car, on the engine dyno, an intake manifold swap is a fairly easy thing. In the car, it's a lot more involved and much more time consuming to do it on the chassis dyno. But on an engine dyno, it's right there. We have access to it. So doing that kind of a swap is very easy. All we have to do is make sure that the discharge from the turbo goes through the intercooler and then it goes over to the throttle body. On the 1-piece and the 2-piece, it's going to be very similar. The log is going to be a little bit different. But again, I want to run an intercooler on the log manifold anyway to, obviously that's going to be a natural upgrade for something that doesn't have an intercooler, non-intercooled version, especially with the draw-through turbo. We want to have an intercooler on it, test it. So being able to run all those manifolds back to back and say conclusively, hey, look, this one with no runner length does this. This one with this kind of runner length does this, and this one does this. This particular one is a low mileage 2.5. It has the, I think it's a 782 head on it. Yeah, it has a 782 head. I was told it only had about 30,000 miles on it. The one downside to all of this stuff, and we'll go through a lot of the mods that it has, but we think that one of the pistons, one of the ringlands might be cracked on it. So that's what they remember. And so I probably will have to either pull the motor out or take the head off. So that's my question to you guys. If there are 2.2 turbo guys out there, with this being in the car, I'm going to have to pull the head and pull at least one of the pistons and replace the piston with another stock one. Or the other thing I can do is, as we see here, this was part of the this is part of the vehicle purchase. Weisco Forged pistons. So we've got a very cool forged piston assembly. Let's see if I can. Oh, there we go. Kind of get the camera going there. Valve release, big dish, it's low compression. And this is a 2.5 piston. You can see the skirt design. Whoa. Got the pin here. So I can upgrade to these pistons, but if I was going to do that, I probably would want to take the motor out, have it honed at least, so I can get the right, I need to see what kind of wall, piston to wall clearance this forging wants compared to the factory one, and then adjust that accordingly. And if I was going to do that, then I'm also going to want to do an MLS gasket if it doesn't already have that, and an ARP head studs. And then if we're going to do the MLS gasket, we're going to want to have the right surface finish on both the head and the block. So we'll want to do that. So it'll be a lot more involved than just changing one piston. The ideal situation, at least to get it running right now, is just to get a replacement piston. If that thing has a broken ringland, what we want to do is take the head off, take the piston out, exchange for another one, put it back in, and hopefully, and hopefully it all works and it runs. It hasn't been started in a long time, maybe 3 or 4 years probably. It is the, as I said, it's a 2.5. I need to find out whether or not it's a common block or not. I'm gonna dig into it. I haven't done that yet. A couple of other cool things it has. It's he told me when he heard it at 25 pounds, so he's not scared to boost. It has a 3-bar map sensor on it. It has plus 30 or plus 40 injectors. He didn't remember exactly. Obviously, a bigger fuel pump, probably you know, like a 42 Aeromotive or an AEM or something like that. It has the T2 two-piece intake manifold. It also has a phenolic spacer between the upper and lower portions of the T2 manifold. It has kind of all the mods that guys do. It has the V6 throttle body. The inlet of the manifold has been matched to the throttle body. As I said, it has a big front mount on it. It has a turbo upgrade. He was not sure what turbo it was. He was sure that it was not a Super 60, which is very common for these motors. So it's not a Super 60. He said he thinks it's probably bigger than that. It has a big 3-inch swing valve and a full 3-inch exhaust, including the downpipe and the cat and the muffler on it, which is really cool. It has the 528 trans in it. It has a limited slip. It has a good clutch. It has conies on it all the way around, and these are not even the conies that most people got that were from the GLHS. These are aftermarket conies that one of the companies did a big buy-in on, and they put those on it. So it has coilovers on it, so it has adjustable ride height on it. It has obviously spring upgrades on it to go with the coilovers. They even went to the trouble of, and this is something that I did to my 5-liter Mustang way back in the day on the rear control arms. What I did was to make them not as flimsy, we just boxed them. So we took a section of flat steel and put it in between there, and then seam welded each one of those so that we made it we boxed it in so that it wasn't wasn't so much a flexi flyer. And they did that to some of the suspension components on the control arms and stuff. It has what I think is a stock front rear sway bar, no rear sway bar, or stock front sway bar, but no rear sway bar on it. Right now it has, I'll show you, and this is the question that I'm posing in the video. Gotta take a drink of my frosty cold beverage because it's very, very hot here. So it has these wheels. The tires I'm definitely going to replace. They've been sitting for a long time. It has cross-drilled brakes. And my question is, do I keep those? So let me know in the comments, guys. Those wheels and tires. It also has rear disc brakes, which we'll go take a look at in a second. But should I keep those, or it has a set of factory ones over there? So I've also got the factory wheels and tires. So let me know in the comments, should I run the wheels and tires that are on it, not the tires, but the wheels that are on it now? I like them because you can see through them and you can see the cross-drill brakes, and it kind of looks cool, especially in the rear. It has rear discs, so everybody wants to show that off. And then if I really wanted to be ultra fancy, I would paint all the calipers red so people would think that they're Brembos. Oh man, people did that back in the day. It was kind of hilarious. But so let me know, which would you put the factory wheels back on it? Would you put GLHS wheels on it? If I put the factory ones on, the other thing I'm thinking about doing is maybe having the center sections either black anodized or powder coated black so that it's a little different than a factory one. I like the way that the factory wheels look because I think that they're pretty cool. These actually look good on this car. I've got some, we've got some other work to do to it, obviously. I'm gonna repaint the bumpers, and I may be doing a video on rubbing out the hood because it's fairly typical for these, and especially something's been sitting in the sun for as long as it has. I'll show you the hood is pretty oxidized, and same thing for the roof. Get rid of our intercooler here. Guys can kind of take a look. Oh, almost got me. Dang cargo shorts. So you can see, and you can see up in this area, right? Come on, like right up there. I took some polishing compound and rubbed out one spot, and there's actually blue underneath there, so I could, if I wanted to, rub all that out in the top, also in the roof, and it would be blue again, at least for a little while. Because what's happened is it's already gone through all the clear. You can kind of see here on the sides. I'll show you. And the other thing I like about this car is, of all the GLHSs, this must might be my favorite color. But you can see that the clear is going away. You can kind of see over here. Here's the spot where I did some polishing compound on. And if I did the whole hood, that would actually look pretty nice. This is my favorite thing about these. I like that it has a vent. You got a couple of small little rust spots which I can address, and then you can see up on the roof kind of is the same way. The sides are not too bad. That's a better color blue. You got the GLH turbo stuff on there. The interior is actually very nice. It's in great shape. He's got in it from a later model version of this car. They're blue, so that they match the exterior. He got an interior from another car and did most of the stuff. The carpet's in good shape. The seats are in great shape. It has the rear parcel tray. The dash is in good shape. It also has an air fuel meter with a readout inside the car, so we'll be able to kind of see what's happening when you're out boosting the car around, which is, it's always good to have more data on it. So I got to open this back up because everyone wants to see the engine. And the ECU has also been modified as well. It's a T1 ECU, and then it's been upgraded to work with the different sensors and stuff that go with the T2 upgrade. As I said, it has a 3-bar sensor on it, and I think, and I haven't found it yet, I'm assuming that it probably has like a Granger valve or some sort of manual wastegate controller that they're adjusting. And because I don't think if he was talking about running 25 pounds that it would be set like that all the time. And if it is, it's, obviously that's not ideal. I would want to be able to run the thing at 7 pounds or 10 pounds and whatever the minimum is, and be able to drive around like that. Oh, Tim, you're just jealous. The interior wasn't nice when it was new. It's mint. And actually, after all I did was I took it to the car wash and we scrubbed it off. There's a funny section in the video about me getting rid of all the cobwebs on this thing from underneath, because there were lots. But on the interior, what I'm going to do is I'll probably want to, even though they're in pretty good shape, I probably will like shampoo everything, and then I'm actually going to put mats down because the carpet is actually nice enough that I want to kind of preserve it. It's good enough. Plus, I want to have floor mats that say turbo. It's just, there's nothing faster than turbo floor mats. Right now, the center console is not in there, but he has it, so he just found that. So I'll be able to put the center console in. And the best thing about all of this is that once I've solved the few problems that are associated with this, I'll be able to do lots of chassis dyno testing. So we'll be able to get and run this thing on the chassis dyno, which will be great. And we'll be able to see, it'll kind of be interesting to do maybe similar tests on the engine dyno and on the chassis dyno. So things that are easy, obviously. You don't want to go and try to do 3 different intake manifolds on a chassis dyno because it's hard to get access to everything. But like intercooler stuff that we can just have the intercooler up hanging up, up over the car or whatever. That's fairly easy because that doesn't really affect what's going on. It's not going to affect the results of the test. So that will kind of be cool. This also has some sort of special exhaust manifold, I think from Turbos Unleashed is what he told me. So it was another dedicated casting that they had done that's not stock. So that will be good. It has a Turbos Unleashed billet thermostat housing, which is awesome. And a strut brace that they don't have on right now because the strut brace is interfering with the vacuum line coming out of the big throttle body, but we'll be able to address, things like that. There was at some time a fire, probably a fuel line or something. You can see there's a little bit of evidence of that on the hood, but we can clean that stuff up. I like all of the little projects that are possible. Like I said, the bumper will come out nice. We can repaint that. I'm wondering if some of the other things, it still has the fog lights on it. I'm wondering if the air dam and the side skirts and stuff, if any of that stuff is still available. especially if I have one that says GLHS, because then, you know, that's like putting an AMG sticker on your Mercedes, even if it's not an AMG. that just makes it faster, right? But honestly, it's got lots of good stuff. I mean, I was really impressed with the list of things, the list of modifications that it has. Not necessarily because I want to drive around like that, because I probably don't, but it'll be really good to have all of this stuff for the testing that I want to do on the engine dyno. Grab yourself a voltage regulator and a headlight relay to set aside for future years. There will be future use. A voltage regulator and a headlight relay. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Let's see, is it still on the factory wiring? I'm not sure, VK. I honestly don't know that much about it other than what he told me. Does the dashboard have a plaque? It's not a GLHS, it's only a GLH, so it just says Omni on it. Evaporated blue. That's a good color combination. Yeah, I like the blue interior better than I like the red stuff. Blue is not bad. Gray is pretty good for interior. I have a car that has tan interior, which is okay because it's red on tan, so that's kind of a good combination. The Daytona Z is a good one because it was, especially if it was a later one, that they made some real power then. Matt, you want me to put a Ford 2-liter turbo in it? Yeah, I like the idea of the stock wheels too, but I do like being able to see the brakes. Had an 85 Chrysler Laser 2.2 in high school. A series of videos gonna make me find something similar. Yeah, that's what happens is we do a video on stuff and then everybody wants to, oh, I gotta have me one of those. Yeah, I don't see too many neons in the wrecking yard anymore. I see a lot of like PT Cruisers and the later 2.4 stuff. Look up how to center the engine before making big pulls. I'm not sure about why the 4200 doesn't have the popularity of a 2J. The 2J is in a better car, so like the Supra is not only does it have a good motor, but it's a really good looking car too. So it has a lot going for it. And then guys race the heck out of them, and you know they've made millions of horsepower with them. And the 4200s have never done that. And also they were more of a truck motor. But I have to say that really the LS is the same way. Most of the guys that are making power with LSs are not doing it with an LS1 or an LS2 or an LS3. They're doing it with an LR4 or an LM7 or an LQ4 and LQ9. They're doing it with the truck versions of that, so that maybe it can catch on. 2.2 T3 from a Daytona IROC-Z with a twin cam would be awesome. Yeah, those are good. Those started out making good power. A Caliber SRT4. I haven't seen any of those ever in the wrecking yard. We find lots of PT Cruisers and those kinds of things. Yeah, torque steer is an issue. Yeah, lots of guys did the turbo caravans too, and there were guys running 10s with those things back in the day. So you had 3 of these back in your youth: the Shadow, Daytona, Laser, GLH Just Charger. Nice. If someone added the SMEC, it would be over in the left front corner of the engine bay along the fender. That's what was sold as the S60 harness. Let's see. Is it over where the ECU is? I can take you over there and show you what the ECU looks like. So here's what they did. I was told that the ECU was unpotted, and then they made whatever modifications were. I'm not that familiar with the Mopar stuff, so he said that they unpotted it, made the necessary modifications that they needed to be able to put in the other sensors that go along with the T2 stuff. So that's all I know. I haven't even tried to start it or anything. We're not going to do that until after I do the leak down test. And, you know, like I said, I'm going to have to take it apart or take it out. Yeah, the logic module will be in the right side passenger kick panel under the glove box. Tom, as power goes up, the nitrous requirement does not go up. If you add 100 horsepower with the nitrous, it adds 100 horsepower. Now, when you do that on a turbo motor, a lot of times it can change the output of the turbo motor because it can affect boost. But what happens is the nitrous has 100 horsepower worth of oxygen molecules, let's say. And when you add that, that's how much power it adds. That's why I keep telling people that make comments about nitrous motors, and they're like, oh, I don't care what the motor does on nitrous. I only care about I don't care what the motor does like on the motor. I only care about what it does on nitrous. Well, those two things are related, because whatever if your motor makes 500 horsepower NA and you add 100 horsepower, it makes 600 horsepower. But if you add that 100 horsepower to a motor that makes 600 horsepower NA, now you have 700 horsepower. And you're never going to get a 500 horsepower motor that you add 100 horsepower with a nitrous to. It's never going to make 700. It's only going to make 100 more, because it only has that much nitrous or that many oxygen molecules to make the extra power. Yeah, Jeremy, we might go standalone. We're going to run standalone on the engine dyno for sure. And that might be the way to go with this. I just want to make sure that everything else in the car works. The one thing that it doesn't have that I would really like it to have, and it will almost have to have if I'm going to drive it around a lot, even if it's in stock trim, is it doesn't have AC, and it would have to have AC. I mean, it was probably 100 degrees today, so. What kind of front engine mount does it have? I'll have to take a look. I remember guys filling with RTV. If you don't connect the air intake, you can burn the ECU. This doesn't have an air intake on it. This has a cone filter on it, on a long tube, obviously connected to the turbo. Yeah, that's the thing about nitrous. Dan brought up that the torque varies over the RPM range. The earlier that you add that 100 horsepower, it's just math. The earlier that you add 100 horsepower, the more torque that you'll make. It is a stick. It's a 528 trans. Michael, it's 528. Yeah. Yeah, they did some crazy things with sensor manipulation and that kind of stuff back in the day to get these things to add fuel or change timing and things. And, you know, obviously a standalone is a much better way to do that. The motor, I'm told the motor runs, that if I put a battery in it, and one thing obviously I need to do is drain the fuel and put good fuel in it, I'm told that the motor will start. I haven't tried that. He said, but he thinks it for sure has a bad piston. That's why I want to do the leak down on it, because I don't want to just take the motor out or take the head off and take the whole thing apart until I'm sure that there's something bad on it. So I'm going to start with that, and I probably will do that tonight. And then once I do that, I'll decide, okay, do I take the motor out? So anybody out there that's a 2.2 guy, is it easier to take the motor and trans out together if that's the way that I want to do it? Is it easier to take the head and the intake manifold off together as one unit? Does that make more sense and leave the rest of the motor in the car? What's really, since I've never pulled one of these out, what's the best way to do that? So somebody let me know. Yeah, you're in San Bernardino. It was 98 degrees. It was warm. The ECU needs airflow through the duct. Yeah, I remember them talking about that they were using that to cool the ECU. Jeremy, it's not all stock at the moment. I went through the list of all the mods. There's a lot. It's a 2.5. It's got a 3-bar map. It's got a turbo upgrade. It's got a T2 intake manifold, big front mount, a big turbo, 3-inch exhaust, all kinds of stuff. Ridgewood. Okay, remove the motor and trans out of the bottom. Okay. So are you dropping the K member or something? What are you doing? Drop the subframe. Okay. Kyle, there's not really a 2.2 and a 2.5 head. There's an early head and a late head, essentially. This one has the fast burn head, which the other one has the early head. Somebody tell me what that's called. The G head, I think, is what it is. And they use, you can put either head on either motor. Tex would pull the whole head bolts out without pulling the head exhaust and slide a new head gasket in. That's a pretty good idea. Unfortunately, we got to take a piston out. So, okay, so drop the subframe. It's real easy. Nice. Yeah, this one has the fancy Shelby valve cover on there. We'll walk over and I'll show you that so you guys get a close look. It's not really in view right now. So it's got the Shelby stuff, T2 intake manifold, big throttle body, 3-bar map. No AC. It does have this though. It's pretty fancy. Here's the air intake, cone filter. It's the front mount here. I'll show you guys. You guys can see in there. There you go. You can kind of see it. It goes all the way over here. Yeah, Omni adjustable. So it's got some good stuff on it, which I'm really excited about. I'll be even more excited the first time I'm able to drive it. And okay, come on. The first time I'm able to drive it, I'll be even more excited. Come on, focus in, you dumb camera. Russell beverage. Okay. Okay. Close and open. That did nothing. It's a pain to remove the manifolds in the car. Okay. Come on. How can you not focus on me? That looks like the one-piece gasket Shelby valve cover too. I use my engine hoist to pick the chassis up off the ground. Oh, Aaron, you pulled the AC off of your 323 GTX? That's not good. I don't know if I don't think he gave me the stretch hour brace. I'll have to call him and see if he still has that. There we go. Yes, I did buy the car. The car's mine now, Tom. So we have a hoist, obviously, here. We have a lift, and we have, because we're at West Tech, so that should make it easier. So it would be nice to be able to, like, just, drop the whole thing out. That would be great. That would make life a lot easier, because in working on it, it would be more like working on it on the dyno. Manifolds, the collector bolts, and the starter. Well, if we drop the motor out, then that will make the manifolds a lot easier to get to, right? Trail King, I have tested the short and long runners of the FR500 manifold that I have that I'm going to sell, and that video is already up. If you take a look at the 4.6 liter 4-valve intake shootout video that I have up, you'll see where they cross over. Mike, I have the pepperoni pizza wheels. I have the stock ones too. But that was my question earlier, was should I put those on or should I leave these wheels on? So that'll be good if I can unbolt the subframe and not have all the Black Widows jumped out. That'll be great. Why I got haters in here, yo? Noodles, I don't have to check the wheels. I don't know who makes them. They're actually Enki. Yeah, we've done the brake clean and lighter thing with the spiders. Yeah, I like the pizza wheels. The only thing I like better than those are I really like the GLHS wheels. A lot of guys got surprised by these cars, especially the GLHS, the turbo stuff, And then when guys modified these and turned the boost up on them, because I think that they only weigh about 2,500 pounds, so they're pretty light. ZZC Racing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what year the motor is. I haven't taken the valve cover off to find out whether it's a roller cam or a slider like the early one that I have. What size tires are on it? Let's see. Continentals. Got some meaty, super meaty 205, 60 15s, I think. 205 55 16s. Big boys. Yeah, I do like the GLHSs, and this does have conies on it, though. The original motor for this is obviously not the original motor for this car, but the original motor he has, so I can put that back together if I want. Is the original wheel a 16 also? I can't remember. I was thinking that they were 15s, but Mike, it took me a long time to find this. The Shelby cars are not cheap. I mean, well, and they're hard to find. Yeah, this car doesn't have any rust on it. It has the parcel tray is there, the spare tire is there, the cover for the spare tire, even the jute padding under the carpet cover for the spare tire cover is still there. It's getting crinkly and stuff, and you don't want to move it around a lot. I probably will replace it with just regular kind of jute padding underneath it, and it's an easy pattern to cut out. This 2.5, I think all the 2.5s had balance shafts in them. Yeah, I do like that they're 16s, and these don't seem to, even at a 205, they seem to be sized pretty well for the car. So the originals are 15, 205, 50, 15s, because they had the original cars had gator backs, and I don't know if the GLH had them or just the GLHS. It's been a long time since I was looking at those specs. Tim, I think the Mercury Capri 390 wheel diameter, didn't the early Mustangs have the TRX wheels? Weren't they a weird size also? Did the Plymouth Horizon or GLH live longer in production? I don't know about the production. I don't know about the production run on the Horizon. Yeah, the Michelin TRX tire, but it was on a weird size or a weird bolt pattern, if I remember right. The GLH also had the gator backs. Okay, cool. Shelby had some fiberglass wheels for these. Wow. The owner of this has a GLHS too, which is awesome. The fiber ride wheels were only on the CSX. As a matter of fact, the gentleman that I got this car from, I was originally going to buy the Spirit RT because he had one of those as well, and I think that it was kind of all stock, and I kind of wanted that car because at the time it was the fastest production sedan, and I thought, well, if I can't have what I wanted, which is this, then the Spirit would be another option because they made good power and they already had an intercooled motor, and you could, and it was a 4-valve deal and you could make a lot of power with it. So that would have been fun also, and it's still a, you know, a back in the day kind of car, so it would have been fun. But this is really much better. This car was not really drag race. It was, you would, if you've, anybody's ever seen this car, you may have seen it at Willow Springs. So today, in addition to doing all the stuff on this, I got to run a couple of cool motors today for one of the customers at Westech. We got to run a couple of big blocks. One of them was a fairly simple, but it worked very well. It was a 496 10-to-1 990 rec port iron heads. GM ones had been worked over a little bit. It had it's a boat motor, and it had a decent sized camshaft in it. It had a single plane intake manifold on it, and it was making 635, 640 ish. So it did well. And then the other one was a blown big block, 555 hydraulic roller cam, airflow heads, low compression. It had an air to water intercooler on it, and had, you know, 2 850s on it. And at 7.5 to 8-ish pounds, it made, I think it was around 920 or so. So both of those were great motors. The guys at James at Bostic Racing Engines brought both of those motors in. And the great thing about it is, not that anybody's trying to, you know, make more power than anybody else, but it's nice when guys come in and run something and everything works out. Like their motor is sound, it was put together correctly, everything's adjusted, it just goes on. You know, in this case, the carburetors were adjusted perfectly, the timing was right. We tried, you know, playing it with a couple of degrees here and a couple of degrees there, but everything was just like spot on, and it didn't leak. And you know, those days are really, really nice. So it was it all worked out really good. Richard, on the LS engines, is it true that they have a slightly more aggressive camshaft over the factory forced induction version counterpart? That, as a general statement, is not true. Actually, the factory LS9 camshaft, which is the supercharged application, is the most powerful factory camshaft you can buy. It makes the most peak power. It'll make less power down low, but it will make more power than all of the truck cams, the LR4, the LM7, the LQ4, the LQ9. It makes more power than an LS1, LS2, LS3, LS6. It makes the same power as the LS7 NA cam because they're almost identical specs. So the forced induction stuff in the LS9 in that case is, for the Gen 3 and Gen 4 stuff, is the most powerful factory cam. Sean, I've never heard of a twin turbo V6 Daytona. I've only heard of a single turbo 4-cylinder 4-valve motor in the Daytona. Yeah, I think this one, Tim, this one idled at probably 1,000 RPM or so, 1,000 or 1,100. It was, you know, since the boat motor, this one was a jet boat motor. And so the nice thing about it being a jet is you're not nearly as concerned about low speed power as you are, but this thing made really good torque. I want to say it made 570 or something torque. So it did really well. Oh, Sean's talking about a concept car. Okay, I'm not familiar with the concept car. Oh, a Dodge Stealth twin turbo. That's a different thing. Yeah, I definitely heard of those. Yeah, Mike, I don't know if an LS 528 combo is going to work very well. How much room is in there? There's a little bit of room, but a V8 in that car probably twist that thing in half. Do you think you'll get to run an RT 2.2 on a dyno? Like a Daytona? You want me to start this up? If there's not even a battery in it. Yeah, I don't think he's going to convince me to put a slant 6 in. I jump onto Tony's live feed every once in a while, and I told him that I was going to be a Dodge owner. I didn't tell him what it was, though. Yeah, I'm excited about this. It's been a long time since I was able to drive. Like, I loved driving my Sprint, just to watch the boost gauge doing what it's supposed to do when you're making boost and not making boost. And this will be fun because I've always wanted one of these. Did Tony have trouble? Did he hurt that motor or something? The one that's in the Miata? A V8 Rampage. What's his name? Did one of those with the motor in the back? Was it Arlington or one of those guys that had it at SEMA? The 3800 we were working on today also, because I got the 3800 Camaro Firebird rear-wheel drive flywheel for it, and then we actually found a drive plate that already has the bolt holes that we need. So the drive plate will bolt right onto the flywheel. So I think it might be the one that we used before. The problem is the aluminum part of the drive plate is there, and it will work. The center section for the drive plate that actually has the splines, you know, if you think about a clutch, it's the center section of the clutch that has the springs and the Marcel and all that. And that part bolts to the drive plate. But the only one that we have right now, or the Westech has, is already damaged. Unfortunately, from being loaded and stuff against the drive plate, what happens is they tend to break the springs that are in there, and the area around the springs, pieces of the steel break off and stuff. So we're gonna have to get another one, and I don't know when that will be. I mean, they're calling on Monday to try to find out, but I just don't know what it is. Oh, B, what's up, dude? It has been a while. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, anything can fit, obviously, and you could put an LS in there and take it to LS Fest, I guess, if that's what you wanted to do. That's not my intention, though. I have something else that I really want to do to take to LS Fest that would be different. Ridgewood, a friend of yours, has a twin Rampage, twin SRT4 engines. Nice. Mike, if the 3800 goes in there, I'd like it to go in there as a single turbo, and although twins would be really symmetrical and nice, but I'd like it to go in there with a blower and a turbo, just as a gee whiz thing. I know that it is a problem with the storage area and the different vehicles and projects and stuff. A screw type supercharger. Well, we did run Trail King. What's up? Thank you. Thanks. I need the money for projects. I have a problem. Hi, I'm Richard, and I have a project car problem. We ran a Kenny Bell twin screw on a 3800 way back, and that worked well. I obviously wouldn't put one on this. A turbo is definitely the way to go. But compounding that, like with a 3800, blowing through the M90 is definitely kind of cool. And that's kind of why I would like to put that in the Nova, although I really would like the Ameribarrett in the Nova as well. I think both of those would be cool. That car was originally a 6-cylinder car, so having that 6-cylinder in there would be good. But the 3800 is also a 6-cylinder, so it would be true to its original roots. I should do a detailed video of how the engines are mounted and coupled to the dyno. Actually, in the my Sharpie. In the video that I did a video on the big block, which I'll be posting pretty soon. I went through all of the steps of us getting the motor ready, putting the drive plate on, putting all that stuff, putting the motor up on the dyno. It's all probably going to be fast motion stuff, but putting it up there, hooking up the distributor, putting the exhaust on, hooking up the water, because in the case of this motor, it had an air-to-water intercooler. So we've got to run the water, you know, in and out of the intercooler and then back into the dyno tank. We had to hook up a different cooling system, a remote electric water pump. We have a Mazir that has 2 lines coming off of it that feed the motor, hooking up the throttle linkage and the fuel lines and all that stuff. So all that stuff is in there. But maybe if you wanted me to do a step-by-step thing and things for guys to look for when they do that, I could certainly do that video. Is there an Omni land speed record? No, but there are. Actually, the Rampage is a really good truck to run out at Bonneville. It's pretty aerodynamic for a truck. Trail King, have you ever done a dyno on an L? I don't know what you mean by LSX motor. I've tested thousands of, it seems like, LS combinations, and I don't know what people mean by LSX. If that's a specific designation for a motor, you need to let me know what that is. But if you want to do an all-out NA 4.8 or 5.3, you're always going to make more power with a turbo, and then that way you can say you have a Porsche turbo, which is worth it right there, just as long as you can put the turbo sticker on there and the turbo whale tail on there, because every good Porsche has to have that. White LX, I'm going to toss a 60-1 Hi-Fi P trim with an 8.2 T3 housing on my old 2.3. Okay, think it will boost anytime the Century. Yeah, on a T3 housing on a 2.3 should actually be okay. I think it would be good to reduce drive pressure. I think that if you want it to spool, you're going to have a fairly tight hot side on that. But a 60-1 should work. I thought that, I thought it was one of these that they went to equal length half shafts on these things. Quick question, can I get a lot of power on a 1967 327 GM engine? Take a look at the videos that I have up on the 327s. So I ran I've run an L79, an L76, like lots of factory 327s. And then we also did camshaft upgrades on them. And lucky for you, the camshaft upgrade would work just as well on yours. It doesn't have to start out as this 11-to-1 muscle car motor. It could be any 327, and it will work just fine. And yeah, 327 can definitely make power. What's the max horsepower for a 6-liter Vortec running on pump gas? Or are you going to turbo it? Is it NA? People don't buy special LS motors, Mike. They buy junkyard motors and make twice the power of an LSX. Is an LSX like a GM crate motor or something? I don't know what it is. Trail King, usually when the guys are doing V8 swaps in the Porsche, usually the transaxle is the weak link. You might be using a G50 or something, but usually that's the problem, is making V8 power is really easy. Unfortunately, they make lots of V8 torque too, and that's usually the Achilles heel of the drivetrains on those things. I'll take a look at the axle lengths and the sagging motor mounts, I guess. Do you have any Mustang 2 V8 motor mounts? No, I haven't seen any of those in a long time. Engine leveling is critical. So are there motor mount kits for these then that I need to look at? Any testing on the BTR weekend warrior cams? I don't know. I'd have to talk to Brian about what those even are. Am I going for 400 or 500 horsepower? I'm not going for any power level. I know a lot of guys that's the thing that they do, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm going for testing. What does this intake do? What does this intake do? What does this intake do? What do these heads do? What do these cams do? So I can show people what they do. And then later on, if we want to put all that together and make lots of power, then we can worry about doing that. Okay, so you're using a 997 turbo chassis and engine chassis and trans. That'll be good. An LSX 427 will be good. That should make more than enough NA power. If you can't package the turbos on the other motors, which aren't physically any different, so you might as well put a 427 with turbos on it. If you have, if you're trying to fight the packaging thing, but a 427 should make lots of power. I really like the K series Honda that they put in the NSX. Is that Boosted Boys that did that? I think it is. That was really cool. Look at the side mounts and you can see how the engine can be adjusted. Give Johnny Spiva a call, or Spiva. Turbos unleashed, tells his bushings. Okay, cool. I have not worked on a Toyota 1UZ, although I was just talking to somebody about that today. No, the GLH does not have the bell housing that I need, unfortunately. The one from this transmission won't work because the back side of it, the part of the bell housing that bolts to the transmission, does not have the bolt pattern that we need to bolt it to the dyno. Only the rear wheel drives do. 700 horsepower from a 427 should not be that difficult. It just takes camshaft and compression and cylinder head and intake manifold. It's not, although the last time I tried on my 427, I was not successful, but I've seen lots of guys do it. The passenger mount needs a 1/4-inch washer under the mount. I set the mount by loosening the passenger side 2 bolts and the front mount center bolt. Push the car up and down to center the drivetrain. All right, I'll take a look at that. Neil, that you're not going to get a max horsepower out of a 6-liter on pump gas. So you don't have to worry. The 6-liter will take any amount of power that you can put at it on pump gas with that kind of timing. So whatever's safe and won't detonate, you won't hurt that 6-liter unless you detonate it. We've made 1,500 horsepower on race gas on a stock bottom end 6-liter. So you're going to make, on pump gas, you're going to make 600 or 700, 800, whatever your number is, depending on how good your tuner is and depending on a lot of other things. But you won't hurt the motor from power. You'll probably hurt it from detonation, trying to get the most power that you can out of pump gas. Are you going to do anything with LT4 heads? Which ones? The new ones or the ones before that? The Gen 2 stuff? The Omni is front wheel drive. The Jeep does have, the 2.4 Jeep, I'm told, has the right bell housing. I think I have the bell housing situation taken care of. I have a stock bottom end 5.3, stage 2 TSP, LS7 lifters, LS6 valve springs, new push rods with a TBS intake, 50-pound injectors. I'm going NA for now. What power level should I be making on 93? So you have a cammed 5.3. Does it have stock head? What heads does it have on it? Does it have 706 heads? And does it has a Trailblazer SS? So I don't know what stage 2 cam you're talking about. Is it a stage 2 truck cam, a stage 2 NA cam, a stage 2 blower cam, a stage 2 turbo cam? But if it's a, I'm thinking it's probably 430 or something flywheel. Please do an LSA. I don't have any LSA blowers. What's the highest compression you can run on an LS? I don't know what that combination is. I don't know what the combination of chamber volume and, it depends on which LS you're running. If you had lots of displacement and a really small chamber and had a flat top or a dome piston, you get to a point where compression stops helping you. It starts hurting you. Is the Turbo Smart full setup with stock turbo off the table for the Omni? I don't understand the question. 85 and 84 2.2 has a different flywheel bolt pattern than the 86 and up. Is it because they went to the I have a 6-bolt crank, so is it because they went to the forged crank on the later ones? I'd like to see a 6-liter with 13-to-1 compression. That's actually fairly easy to get that compression. I think that the LT1 that Brian Tooley has now is going to be that or maybe above, maybe closer to 14-to-1 right now. So you have 862 heads. Yeah, like I said, I think 430 or so flywheel is probably where you're at. Maybe less than that if you have a stage 2 low lift truck cam. Just take a look at the videos that I have up on the truck cams that we ran from Brian Tooley Racing. If you take a look at the specs that you have and look at those, it's going to be comparable. Kyle, fellow Omni owner, what with cam and basic bolt-ons, what you'll be tuning with. On the engine dyno, we'll be tuning with a Holly. On this, I don't really know yet. Turbo Smart, blow-off valve, wastegate, boost controller, etc. You want me to put that on the Omni? It already has a wastegate. Does it have a blow-off valve? I don't see one. I'll have to take a look and see. I run their stuff on almost all of the engine dyno stuff. There was a Cobalt SS with a supercharger on it before they came out with the turbo stuff. Yeah, that's what I thought. The 86, the later ones had an 8-bolt crank. Was the 8-bolt crank still a cast crank, or was it a steel crank? Yeah, who's holding out, yo? Oh, the blow-off valves in the airbox. Yeah, we don't have that. Although he does have a T2 airbox, which I'm going to go get from him. We have a list of things that I'm going to get on my next trip. A bolt for the common blocks. I need to find out what block this is. Where do I find out where's the casting number for the block? Oh, Kyle, thanks. Yeah, the Holly will run just because I'm familiar with it and I can do all the tuning on it, so it will work good. We do have an MS3 Pro, but I don't really have a harness for it for this application. The only forged crank was 2.2, T2, T3, and T4. Okay. Is 1,000 horsepower easy with a 427. 1,000 easy horsepower 427. Yeah, just add boost. Ridgewood, we have a bell housing for I bought one from somebody for the 2.2. I already have the bell housing for the 3800, and so I just need to find. I think I just need to find a flywheel for the 2.2. I've got to find some like new old stock gator backs, right? Or I've got to write gator back on the side of them. Okay, the early block has the block off plate. Is it the block off plate for what is it, for the fuel pump or something? No mechanical fuel pumps on the common block, okay. You'd have to use fairly mild cams with a Gen 6 454. Not so much with the factory fuel injection. I've run tests on the fuel injection versus the carburation with the stock cam, and you can see the difference there. But you're going to want fairly mild cams because the factory intake is a low RPM intake. So it doesn't make sense to put a camshaft on there that wants to run to 6,000 when the rest of the manifold is already kind of fallen off. Well, for the engine dyno, we already have a Holly, so that's what we're going to run. The Gen 2 LT4 heads is what I'm interested in testing on the 350 LT. I had a set of Gen 4 LT4 heads, but I sold them. BWKR4 turbo, that's pretty small. That's the turbo that I actually ran on the Sprint motor, I think. I don't know how much the Holly is. That Westech has a Holly here that we use, so I don't know what the price is. Kyle, what I'll do is, as we get into this, we'll run a lot of testing with the stock turbo and then with whatever upgrade this turbo is, especially if I take this engine out. And then I'm just going to make an adapter to go from the stock exhaust manifold to a T3, and then that way we can run a bunch of different size T3s and see how well the turbo upgrades do. The stock wheels are in good shape. I can grab one and show you. Yeah. Well, once you clean all the spiders off, they look pretty good. That would be cool. Calvin spins it up. This one already has an upgraded turbo, and we have a stock one. So I want to start with the stock one, obviously. Yeah, the 996 GT2 is that's packed in there pretty good. That's a lot of engine and extra stuff going on in there. What might happen down the road with the LT1 base L99? We're going to do the DZ302 by combining the L99 and the LT1. Matthew, if you wanted to make that much power, would you have to get rid of the factory fuel injection? I don't know. I don't know if somebody let Matthew know if they have programming for the factory fuel injection. That's the thing. If you can put big enough injectors in it, you put a cam, good heads, and intake manifold or something on there and add boost to it, it will make that power as long as you can have the programming to adjust it. Yeah, they're in good shape. They just had dust on them and spiders, and once you clean all that off, they work pretty good. Yes, I did take a look at the video on punching the head by the head gasket. Yeah, the 996 GT2, there's no shortage of power. And the thing I have to say about Porsches, and even though I'm not a really big fan, I'm very impressed by all the stuff that they've won. Like winning Le Mans in air-cooled motors that have turbos on them and running for 24 hours. That's really impressive stuff. And when they tell you what power output a Porsche makes, their horsepowers seem to be different than other people's horsepowers. Because when they tell you what power it makes, and then you watch one of those, like even drag race against somebody else with a lot more power, they do very, very well. Uh-oh, the final, you got a whole bunch of T2 or 2.2 stuff laying around and 2.4, 2.5 stuff? Fast hippo, I honestly wouldn't ever run cams with that much lift. I don't think it's necessary for what you're doing. I start worrying about how stable that cam is at RPM. The rest of it at 230, 251 is fine in a 118 LSA plus 6.5. That's all going to be normal kind of blower stuff, but you don't need a 650 lift cam or even a 640 lift cam on the exhaust side. I don't know why it has more lift on the intake side, but that's not critical. I would go with something closer to 600, and I would just want to make sure that it's stable, because one of the things that helps you with these blowers is RPM, because that's why you're putting the 118 LSA in there, is so that it makes power at the top. That's why they've enhanced it with that LSA. Yeah, Kyle, they don't, and it's the same math equation that we use on every other motor. If we port this head as much as we can and it flows 170 or 175 CFM, because it's a 4-cylinder, that means if we put a cam in it, raise the compression, put a good intake manifold on it, put a good header on it, if we run it NA, we might be lucky to make 175 horsepower. When you start multiplying that out with boost, it takes a lot of boost to get to any kind of real power numbers. And that's the problem, is it doesn't have the head flow. If you look at a Honda K Series motor, it has 100 CFM more, or maybe 150 CFM more than that does. So it's a lot easier to make power. And then it obviously has the ability to RPM, and it's a 4-valve head and not a 2-valve head. So it's a lot easier to get really big power numbers when you're starting with a super efficient NA combination already. Yeah, the direct connection guys had the Super 60 kit. It was like a 300 horsepower option. I mean, combination that they put together. The roller cam durations can equate to a flat tappet duration. The thing that's going to be dramatically different is the ramp rate of the cam is going to be dramatically different in a roller. The thing is, the big difference is not going to be between a hydraulic roller and a hydraulic flat tappet. You'll get a big change in ramp rate, but you'll get a big difference between a solid and a hydraulic cam. Stancy Omni as much negative camber as possible. That's pretty typical for a strut suspension, but it's not good for tire wear though. I haven't weighed this, but I'm told that they're in the 2,500 pound range maybe. I raced against the Consuliers back in the day. As a matter of fact, my first driving instructor way back in the day had one of those that he used as an instructor car. It was pretty cool. The Cobalt isn't the GLH competition. The Cobalt is way later than that, I think. The Sunbirds were not that sporty. That's the Sunbird turbos, yeah. I've driven a ton of supercars and still like the Porsche the best. I think it's because they are so tail happy. Every time you read a review from Car and Driver or Road and Track, if you go back and look through the years from when they first when Porsche introduced the 6-cylinder Porsche, the 911, and all the way through the turbo stuff, and every new advancement that they make when they went to 4-wheel drive and all this stuff, they said the same thing. Oh, Porsche has cured the like throttle off oversteer or the tail happiness, or they, you could call it anything that you want. I mean, they even put weight in the front of the bumpers of the early Porsches to help them handle better. And then they would say that every year. Oh, they've cured it. They've cured the, having the weight over the back wheels and having all the weight back there because the engine's there, and having the car want to rotate on you for guys that were novice drivers and stuff. Obviously, having the thing tail out a little bit can be fast. When a lot of guys did it, just look at Hans Stuck or any of those guys. But they would say the same thing every year, and I don't know how you can keep curing it every year and just have it not be cured like 20 or 30 years ago. How strong are the rods? I don't know. They weigh 2,100 pounds. That would be even better. I think with these things, the weak link on most of them was the tuning. Okay, I've already gone an hour and 24 minutes. We got 2 minutes left. Nitrous is a good way to get turbos to spool. I've done some work on the Lumina Z34s, twin dual cams. Oh, 2,200 pounds, okay. Neon head swap, that's not going to happen. Yeah, the Z34 motor was not good to work on. We did some porting of the intake manifold. We did headers for it. We did bigger throttle body. I don't think we did any cams or anything. I don't know how much boost we're going to run, what I'm going to do is test. We're going to see what 7 pounds does and what 10 pounds does and what 15 pounds does. And we're going to try water meth and intercooling and E85 and all kinds of stuff. The Cobalt supercharger isn't better than the 3800 supercharger. Dan, these motors, both the 2.5 and the 2.2 non-intercooled motors were 7 pounds. And then they would let them for 10 seconds at a time go up to 9 pounds. And then for every second that you didn't, and except for the 84 version, but for every second that you weren't in boost, they would add another second onto the overboost situation. And then the intercooled ones were higher than that. BK, this is a distributor motor, so we're just going to take the signal from the distributor. I'm not going to swap in a 2.4 turbo. Okay, guys, thank you for showing up. I definitely have to get going. It's been, but I'm very excited about this. This is awesome. And now that I know I can just drop the whole thing out with, I'm going to have to disconnect all the lines and hoses and all of that stuff. And I'm going to have to make sure that I mark them, since this will be the first time that I'm officially working on one of them. It will be good. So I'm hoping that, sometimes when you take a motor apart, if they say that it's a bad piston, maybe the piston's bad and the rod's bad and the crank is bad and the cylinder wall is bad and there's lots of bad in there. So we'll see. I have the other motor over there. It has a few issues, mostly the water pump housing. I might be able to epoxy it, but if I'm going to drive this thing, like I would like to drive this thing, back and forth to my house and stuff, it would be good. So I would want to make sure that it goes together right. So if I'm going to do the other motor, I want to make sure that I put it together and make sure that it's okay before we do that. But thank you guys all for showing up. I got to get back to work. There's a never ending. It's never ending. But thank you guys all for showing up. I will see you tomorrow, and make sure to look for the video on this, which goes up tonight.